Told you earlier in the show, Brandon Aiyuk still a 49er, still holding in, so not practicing with the team. Steelers, his preferred destination, still no deal in place. Browns still on the periphery, probably a long shot at this point. Former NFL general manager Mike Lombardi with his read of the Brandon Aiyuk drama. This is from the GM Podcast Shuffle.
Very, very reminiscent of a player who thinks his value is Y and everybody's offering X. And he doesn't want to go to the team that'll come close to Y because he knows that if he goes there, they probably won't win. So, but he won't lower his demands to go to a team that's offering X. So, for example, the Niners, it's reported, have offered him somewhere around $26 million on a long-term deal. Well, that's the market, right? He wants more. He wants to be paid in the top 5. He's not a top 5 receiver, fam. You know that. He's not a top 5 receiver. And for all these people that want to say the Niners are blowing it, and again, I understand my son works there. I get that. But I would be saying this whether he works there or not. Once you start to pay more for a good player, when you overpay for a good player, Aiyuk's a good player. Is he an elite player? No. Is he a top 5 player? No. Do defensive coordinators sit there on Tuesday and Wednesday night in their office and say, how are we going to play? What are we going to do with Aiyuk? How do we stop him? What do we do? No, nobody's doing that.
With that, let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, that's probably a very fair assessment of Brandon Aiyuk in the situation that it is right now.
Well, and the irony of it is, Cleveland is probably pretty familiar with a situation like this. You look statistically to what Brandon Aiyuk has done the last 2 seasons, pretty much on par with Amari Cooper has done. Granted, Brandon Aiyuk is 4 years younger, which probably spurs the interest that the Cleveland Browns would have. You would be able to reset the clock there a little bit. But, if you're not catching 100, 110, 120, if you're not near that 1,500-yard mark, 1,600-yard mark, also, the double-digit touchdowns. But look, Brandon Aiyuk in the right offense could conceivably probably hit those numbers. You look at San Francisco, McCaffrey catches a lot of passes. Certainly you have Kittle, you have Debo, certainly Aiyuk and some other wide receivers that they use there as well. So, yeah, the potential is there that he could put up that type of production. But until you've done it, nobody's going to necessarily pay you for it. He didn't want to maybe take the deal with New England because maybe he thought the team wouldn't, be successful if he went there. Well, which one is it? Exactly as, like Mike Lombardi was saying is, do you want the money or, do you want to be on a team that's going to be going for it every year? I don't think it's an issue, that San Francisco is necessarily blowing it. And San Francisco would like to keep as much of this together as they possibly can. And you have to keep in mind, once the season ends next year, they have a real big situation on their hand with their quarterback. I don't know how it plays out because I think part of it is the money. Part of it is also what satisfies San Francisco. Because just to say to San Francisco, we'll give you a couple of draft picks, I don't think that does anything for the San Francisco 49ers this year because you would still have to find a way to replace those 80 receptions, 1,300 yards. That is a lot to put on some people. So for San Francisco, it's a really tough spot to be in. I think they really thought they were going to be crossing this bridge more next year than they were going to be this year. But this is with the situation, and this is where it's at.
Yeah, and again, we'll see how it plays out. Remember, and I pointed this out yesterday, initially the Browns were out of the Deshaun Watson thing until they weren't out of it. So things like this tend to change. So we'll see. Right now you're in wait and see mode.